All right, man, peace. Hey, brothers, I have to ask y'all a question. Are you ready to be a mother? I'm going to say it again. Are you ready to be a mother? I'm not asking you if you're ready to be a father. I'm asking you, are you ready to be a mother? The reason why I'm asking you that question is because many of you cats out there, especially you younger brothers, have to understand. If you decide to impregnate one of these females, the way in which they're trying to shift the overall parental paradigm, they want the man to be both a mother and a father if you're going to be in a relationship, quote unquote, with one of these liberal females. Why am I saying this? The CBS Morning News has a segment here where they have featured a so-called author and psychologist by the name of Darcy Lockman, who's decided that she wants to raise the stakes on trolling men as parents. She's going to declare that even quote unquote good fathers are not good fathers because they're not doing quote unquote their part in raising the child. Brothers, I'm going to say this again. What this society is about, at least how it's currently calibrated, is focused totally on trolling men. Men of all races, but this channel is geared towards the so-called black man, so that's what I focus on. Especially since the so-called black man is in the most disenfranchised state of being more than any other man in this society, in this quote-unquote country right now. So you always have to focus on him because it's going to be his quote-unquote woman, the so-called liberal black woman, who's going to be able to capitalize on many of these super liberal agendas that are being propagated by the media. You're going to be the ones who will be the recipients of the most nagging, the most harassment by your quote unquote or potential wives and baby mothers more than any other race of men. So it's very important that you understand a lot of the ideologies that will be propagated through the national airwaves. They want the female to believe that she should be worshipped just for being able to become pregnant because she's a microcosm of the mother goddess. And thereafter, once you decide that you're going to quote unquote play house with or live with the woman and quote unquote raise a child together, she's going to look at you with a sense of enmity and acrimony because she's upset with you that you're not trying to be the mother as well as the father. In other words, what? She wants you to share in her quote unquote burden of raising the child in the same way that she willingly and willfully has decided to take on your role in the workforce. That's what's called societal engineering or social engineering. The woman has forced her way into the workforce and tried to assume the responsibilities of a man. Not only her responsibilities from antiquity, but also her personality, her mentality, her spirit on you. They're trying to engineer men into thinking and conducting themselves like females. That's why they always say you have to get more in touch with your feminine side. So anyway, they're going to talk about it and I'm going to chime in.
Research shows there is still inequality at home with women taking on most household responsibilities. One of the New York Times most shared articles this week is called What Good Dads Get Away With.
Now, brothers, do you see the title of this article? It says what good dads get away with, and the term good is in quotes. Why is that? Because that's this author's way of saying that there's no such thing as a good dad. Even so-called good dads should be scrutinized and nitpicked because they're not doing quote unquote as much as the woman is doing. Now, if the average quote unquote married man or man in a relationship or new father were to be as petty as this female clearly is, and as many disenchanted liberal females clearly are, you'll end up going back and forth with them all day. That's why I make videos like this so that you can understand the dynamics before you decide to engage in them or indulge in them. It's very important that you know what you're getting into. Because so many cats, I say this all the time, they claim that the woman changed. No, she did not change. The parameters of your relationship change. You're no longer just fucking. Now y'all are raising a child. So you have to make sure that you understand how that woman deals with stress. How is she under adversity? Because however she conducts herself in a state of stress is going to be highly exacerbated once she has the child. Because her hormones are going to be different. The way that she views herself, her self-image is going to change. And she's going to expect a lot of support from you. You have to understand that once you have a child with that woman, you're going to be the father not only to the child, but also to the wife as well. And this society does not like to push that energy out there, that the man has to be a parent over the wife as well, because you are going to have to make sure that you try to placate a lot of her emotional ups and downs. So that will make her essentially your child. No one wants to say these things because they keep trying to push this notion that the woman is so much more mature and intelligent than the average man, especially the black woman being more mature than the average man. Women are great when they're in their right minds. Most of them are not in their right mind. So to be forewarned is to be forearmed.
We like that title. It impacts why women's...
Gayle King said we like that title. Gayle King is someone who just, some man did her real dirty back in the day. Goddamn.
Still handle most of the child care and chores. One study estimates it will be, listen to this, another 75 years before men do half the unpaid work at home.
What that really means is that it will be 75 more years before men have been engineered to think and act like women.
The article by clinical psychologist Darcy Lockman is based on her new book. It's called All the Rage, Mother...
Brothers, once again, the modern day female will continue to troll you as long as you allow her to. The woman believes that men have been given a 6,000 year head start. And they actually tell themselves that if they were in positions of power, that they would have been able to build societies as well. Those of us who pay attention and who observe the nature of the woman understand that she does not have the planning skills or the three-dimensional thought to actually be an administrator over a society. That's how you know, no disrespect, when you see female governors and female prime ministers and female mayors, it's normally because they have sponsors behind them who are pushing them, Luciferian sponsors behind them who are pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. And that's not to say that the male leaders don't have those same things, but the male leader is entrusted to be able to enact certain ideologies on their own. They don't trust the woman to do that. The woman has to have handlers who are telling her exactly what to say and do 24/7, or she'll implode. But what they're really trying to do, once again, is they're trying to encourage the woman to believe or adhere to the notion that the reason why men are in command on a worldwide scale, on a planetary scale, is because they have a 6,000 year head start. So now they're going to spend the rest of this time period while this society is still in relevance or in existence, trying to train men to believe that they should always conform to whatever the woman wants.
Mothers and fathers and the myth of equal partnership. Dr. Lockman joins us at the table to discuss. Now, when we read this, a lot of men are shaking their heads going, no, Darcy, you're wrong. But you...
No, men who have sense, they probably change the channel. The reason why I'm watching this bullshit and I'm making the video is because I know there are a lot of young cats out here who never learn shit. And they're going to be the ones 35, 40 years old, bugged out of their fucking mind.
You call the division of labor the most... I didn't say...
Are they really? Because aren't they saying, darn, we were busted?
Darn, we were busted. And I wish I had a spine. Once again, brothers, pay attention to what is going on around you. When you look at that woman, don't just look at big titties and a fat ass. Also, make sure that you pay close attention to how she acts when things are not going her way. Is she someone who becomes verbally, psychologically, or even physically abusive towards you? Because however she conducts herself is going to be exacerbated once you're in a serious relationship with her and she's confined to this paradigm of quote unquote monogamy. The woman has issues with monotony. Okay? So that's why once you get married to her, or once these men get married to her, after the ceremony, after the wedding ceremony, she looks at herself in the mirror and she says, okay, that was accomplished. What now? And if she does not understand what is coming after that, she's going to try to promote chaos in your relationship so that she can initiate her Kali destruction dynamic, because they want to destroy and rebuild, especially if they do not understand what their overall role is.
That's one way to look at it. The division of labor is the most important equity issues of our time. And
the division of labor. In other words, the woman wants the man to do all the housework, or at least a greater amount of the housework, and also spend more time utilizing whatever feminine aspect or feminine energy she believes should be within him to raise the children. Once again, brothers, the reason why the woman was always allotted the task of raising the children, and this is not going to go over well with a lot of people who are Luciferians or super liberal. The reason why the woman was always allotted with that task is because her mind and her spirit is a lot like a child. That's why you'll notice, and I mentioned this before, whenever these fake holidays come around, whether it's Easter or Christmas, the woman is always hyped up for those holidays like a child. Even if you were to explain to her where those days come from, they're still going to celebrate those days for the most part, unless they were raised in an environment to understand that these holidays are not real, that these are the holidays that you should adhere to, and here's why. For the most part, the woman is going to go along with whatever makes her feel good. So she's a lot like a child. That's why they were allotted the task of raising the child in their DNA. It's what's called maternal DNA.
And you make the article very personal about what was going on in your house. You and your husband were both working parents of 2 daughters, and he thought what and you thought what?
There's so much work involved when children come around that everyone's doing a ton more.
Well, I have news for you, ma'am. Especially due to the fact that you have 2 daughters, the onus is going to fall more on you to be more heavily involved in their life when it comes to trying to craft an image for them to replicate, because, newsflash, you're the woman. So you're going to be the standard for your daughters. Of course, the man should be heavily involved because he's going to create a standard for his daughters to grasp. This is what I should be looking for in a man when it's time for me to start, quote unquote, dating or what have you. But at the end of the day, you as the woman are going to be far more heavily invested, or you should be, because you have to raise daughters. A man cannot teach a daughter how to become a woman.
So it's hard for fathers sometimes to see the proportionality of it. And because of our assumptions about who the primary parent should be, it often just defaults to the woman. And what I found in my research is women are really angry about it.
Well, most women are really angry about a lot of things. The main thing that the woman is angry about is that she's inundated with all of this propaganda from her friends and from the television and from the radio, and she does not know up from down. That's why you have to keep things very simple for the woman. And in antiquated societies, they try to keep the woman as far away from outside stimuli as possible, because they become easily confused and bemused by messages pertaining to what they quote unquote should be thinking as opposed to what they do think. Because a lot of women are happy until they run into people who are not happy, and those unhappy people or unhappy hubs of propaganda tell them, you're not upset. Why not? You should be upset. You mean to tell me that you just stay home and take care of the children while your husband works? Don't you want to be more fulfilled? And these thoughts start to enter into the woman's cranium that were never there before. Next thing you know, she's mad at the world.
Yeah, but you said that he thought he was doing a good job, that you were nagging a lot, and you thought, I'm not really nagging enough.
Yeah.
I hate the word nagging, but you weren't bringing it to his attention enough.
Yes, we had a very different take on it. And he's a great dad. It wasn't about the fathering.
So then why in the title of your article do you have the term good dad in quotes, or the term good was in quotes? Clearly you don't believe that he was a good dad or a great dad, especially if he was the end sample or the crux of what you base your article on.
I think it was the co-parenting piece, and this is where I found a lot of women are really frustrated. And of course, to the person who's being told, hey, you need to step up your game, who already feels like they're doing quite a lot, it became a point of contention.
Well, most things become a point of contention if you're woefully unprepared to deal with the ramblings of a liberal woman. Brothers, you have to understand what somebody expects from you before you get married or before you have a child. You can't just impregnate a woman and then act surprised when this person becomes overly demanding. You have to make sure that you talk things out, and that, once again, you've seen this person in environments or situations where their patience is tested, where their decorum is put in question, where their wherewithal is put in question or put to the test. That's very important. That's very important. How do people handle stress? Because the woman is going to be put through great stress from the time of the pregnancy all the way through the delivery of the child, through the raising of the child. And if she starts to spaz out, it has to be something that you expect, because it's within the confines of what she's already done or what you've already observed.
As it often does. I interviewed about 50 women for the book.
How many men did you interview? If you've only interviewed women, that means that your data is not relevant, because you have to interview both parties and take into account the views and the perspectives of both parties in order to come to a conclusion that can be used as educational for the quote-unquote masses that you're trying to influence. Unless the only perspective that you care about is the female perspective, which is going to necessitate even more conflict between the man and the woman. Because if the man feels like he's getting berated or nagged, eventually he's going to shut down. That's what's going to happen. But you don't care about that because you're a super liberal woman.
And I saw this, of course, all around me.
What did you see?
Well, I found that this predicament is so predictable. And I think what has happened is there's this kind of idea of the modern involved father who's way more involved than like Don Draper, right? Who's sort of like what we all hold in our minds as the 50s dad. So there has been a lot of improvement in how much parenting work men do. But actually the percentage, which the Bureau of Labor Statistics consistently shows is about 35% of, that's how much of the child care work fathers take on, that's held steady for the last 20 years. So the numbers climbed, but they leveled off without ever reaching parity. And a lot of parents today go into this expecting parity. So when it doesn't manifest, there's a lot of upset.
What about the happiness of people who don't expect parity, who have what would be called more traditional
Good
goals?
question.
It is a good question. The thing that I found was that if couples had outlined their expectations, it almost didn't matter how the work was divided.
Ding. In other words, brothers, have open communication with and make sure that you observe the female that you're dealing with way before you decide to have a child, man. You just can't impregnate a female and then say, oh, well, we're going to play it by ear. That shit don't work. The black man has to do a far better job of seeing things happening before they actually transpire so that we can avoid these crazy bugged out situations, man, where you're going back and forth to court or back and forth to jail because of child support and things of that nature. Because after a while, once the woman decides that she's done with you or that she's ready to move on and initiate her Kali restore or rebuild programming with another man because she's already went through her destroy programming with you, they're not going to give a damn. They're going to run you back and forth to court. You're going to be every deadbeat under the sun and everybody's just going to throw dirt on you. That's what's going to happen to you, brother. So make sure that you pay very close attention to the situations that you engraft yourself in. And the woman that you connect yourself with, what is her mother like? Is her mother a constructive individual? Because no matter how nice the daughter acts, she's going to take a lot of the energy from her mother, a lot of the DNA from her mother, and it's going to manifest itself eventually. If her mother is a loudmouth who's disrespectful, that's what the daughter will be as well.
But most couples don't think to do that. You don't know all that goes into raising a kid, all the kind of behind the scenes labor until you have one and you encounter it. So people don't tend to get together and say, how are we going to do this? And it all
because most people don't plan pregnancies, that's why.
It all kind of comes on, and then it often defaults to mother. So the defaulting to the mother is where there's a problem. If people have agreed to live traditionally, that's fine until mothers do get frustrated with that.
There's also nonverbal.
You see how she snuck that in at the end? She was confounded by his question of raising a child in a quote-unquote traditional house, because that's the only type of raising that really works. When you decide that you want to divvy up responsibilities, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that, and everything becomes about business, that goes against the liberal female programming. So she was frustrated by that question. Once she finished her answer, she still snuck in the notion that women are still frustrated. You know what the real solution is, bros, at the end of the day? What the real solution is for you to stop impregnating these women, period. That's the real solution. Because I promise you, if a Cold War gets initiated between men and women in this society, the men will win. Because the men always win. At the end of the day, the woman is a recipient. She's a receiver by nature. She's not an emitter. So all the talking that these modern day females are doing is just to attention monger. That's it. But if and when men grasp the importance of discipline, everything is going to be properly aligned as it should be, as opposed to all of this chaos and this anarchy that is being propagated right now and being pushed.
Work, which is to say, as Nancy Gibbs at time used to call it, keeping the house in your head.
Yes.
That it's not just the work you do, it's all of the planes flying around in your head that have to land about, that have to do with.
Yeah, the mental load is a big thing. And in fact, when I was writing the book, I think it was in 2017, a cartoon illustrating the mental load went viral, and it was awesome. It was perfect. It shows everything that mom has in her head that the father doesn't really know to think about.
Yes, because we know men just don't know how to think about anything. They're too busy. They're too busy trying to push civilization forward and building the cars that you drive in, the houses that you live in, the workplaces that you make your money in, things of that nature. Making sure that you're able to survive because you're sitting back trying to figure out what's the appropriate pamper for your newborn. You're so deep and introspective.
And it's really hard to illustrate that stuff to your partner. And if you're the one who's always on top of it, you're the one who does all the learning. So it's kind of a snow.
Well, that's the least you can do, to be honest with you. And that's going to be something that certain people might not like me saying. But at the end of the day, the reason why you were given the ability to become pregnant and birth the child and raise the child, is because that's your saving grace in a civilization, in a society per se. That's part of your job, as well as acting as the helpmeet to the man. Once again, it's not like you're conjuring up various administrative policies that will make people's lives better. Most of what the woman thinks about in her mind is all about her until she has the child and her maternal DNA gets activated. Then she's constantly thinking about the child. But women do not think of society in a way that is macrocosmic. So this notion that what's going on in their head is so much more vast and deep and and introspective than what men are thinking about. That's another attempt to try to vault the gender of the woman over the man. And unfortunately, there's no one here on this panel that has a backbone, or at least from the male gender.
Snowball effect.
And the solution?
That's also a great question. So I think the first thing is to really understand that the sexism out there in our world permeates our intimate relationships. We don't expect it to. We think our homes are separate from our culture.
I have no problem with women claiming that they're against sexism, but then I no longer want to hear females talking about, you know how we women are. You know, us women are emotional. You know, us women need a man to tell us that we look good. If you truly want men to stop stereotyping women, then you should be the initiator of that, and you should no longer stereotype women. The reason why females stereotype women is because they know that for the most part, demographics do have a nature. And there's nothing wrong with understanding that. They just don't want men to have the power of being able to stereotype women, because that's an attempt to control the woman. When you group all people in a certain demographic under one umbrella and claim that they have a certain spirit or a certain proclivity, that really is a way of controlling them, because you're saying that you understand what they're going to do before they do it. The woman does not like that, even though she herself does it when it comes to her own gender. And if you happen to come across a woman who's not particularly uptight, they'll tell you themselves that that for the most part, the reason why a lot of women cannot get out of their own way is because they're too busy trying to work out some baggage from their past. Many of these super liberal females, they have a traumatic event that occurred in their life, in their childhood, that they're still trying to work out. And it manifests itself in attention mongering, or maybe playing the whore or the slut, or, you know, some other type of machination that they concoct in their head to offset a rape or molestation as a child. And it plays out as an adult, and people get confounded by it. But at the end of the day, most people who are raised in constructive environments, they accept who they are and they accept their role, and they're not looking for glorification.
Culture. And they're not at all. And I think if you go into parenting with that realization, you can do the second thing.
Now, this term privilege is a buzz term that's used by wokey woke people, both black and white. Everything is about privilege. White privilege, male privilege. As a human being, you have the privilege to seek out the best future for yourself by making the correct plan for yourself. Are there certain demographics in any society that have advantages? Absolutely. But I don't call it, as I've stated before, I don't call it white racism or white privilege. I call it white rulership. They're in rulership because they have a ruling class mentality. So-called black people do not have a ruling class mentality. That's why we're not in rulership. Our people are led by the woman. Any race that's led by the women are going to be at the bottom. Simple as that.
Thing that successful couples do, which is just really stay on top of how things are being divided. It doesn't need to be split down the middle, 50-50 with a hatchet. That's not realistic. But if you're constantly checking in with each other to see how things are going, and people have their assigned tasks, agree upon them, and agree the standards that those tasks need to kind of meet.
This woman's quote-unquote husband must have no backbone whatsoever. He must have no backbone whatsoever. And this is why so many men end up in these marriages completely fucking miserable and trying to figure out, how the hell did I get here? You know how you got there? It's because you believe the con job of so many of these modern super liberal females. They reel you in like a Venus flytrap. They have to act nice. Early on, they're willing to act freaky in bed. They're sending you all these nasty pictures. They're doing this, they're doing that. They're claiming that they're going to do whatever you want them to do. And after a while, the monotony sets in and they're no longer enchanted by the relationship. And once the enchantment wears off, now you're stuck with this person who's always bitching and complaining, always nagging, who hates their life, who wants to make everything a fucking competition, who wants to go back and forth over nothing. These are things that especially many of you younger brothers have to be wary of or aware of. Most of you are being raised in households by women, And matriarchal upbringings render most of you young cats impotent mentally when it comes to being able to discern what's going on around you. So it's very important that, certain information is provided so that cats don't end up in disadvantageous positions.
Things work out a lot better. So couples who achieve parity are really on top of that. That is a goal.
All boils down to communication.
Yeah,
Thank you, Darcy.
right.
Thank you very much.
You can look and see this bitch is batshit crazy. Batshit crazy. Whew.
Thank you, Gail.
Every Thursday.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Once again, brothers, before you have a child, ask yourself, am I ready to be a mother? So peace.